Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back. Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, get it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. This is your guy, Marcellus Ease, and we got a lot of good things on the docket for today. The feds hitting up the NBA and NFL, letting them know that there's a highly sophisticated international crime organization watching their players' every single move on social media. And when they're not home, they're breaking in and taking their valuables and selling it off in the black market. And Stephen A. Smith continues to negotiate in public with ESPN, flexing his power, beefing with NFL owners, and exposing certain truths about Bronny James, even though the network that he works on is in a major partnership with LeBron James in the NBA. ESPN is in very unique times right now as they transition to a personality-based business, and a lot of their internal relationships are compromised as their on-air personalities begin to flex the power based off the position they have entering streaming. Speaking of streaming, before the NBA enters into a new world, they're trying to make sure that all their players are healthy enough to play in all 82 games. But unfortunately, just to start off the season, we're seeing an influx of injuries. We'll get great insight from former NBA players on what's going on with the training camp regimens, as well as the preseason being shortened, and how it's hurting today's current players going into the regular season. And with the league getting an influx of global talent every single season, it seems like the talent pool is just getting deeper and deeper. We're seeing a number of free agents who can't find themselves to land on any roster spots. We'll hear from Jamal Crawford and Theo Pinson on some of the dynamics that are playing out on why some guys are allowed to bow out the league gracefully, while others are still talented enough to be in the league but yet can't find a roster spot. And finally, we'll get some great insight as we'll hear from Ice Cube on what happened behind the scenes with Jaylen Brown showing up to the Big Three and the NBA trying to backdoor them behind the scenes, not wanting another media entity to come into the marketplace, perhaps taking more viewers and advertising dollars away. The streaming wars are heating up and the NBA is trying to eliminate all competition. So this will be a brand new series I'll be starting up called Not Everything is Meant for Social Media. And this will be volume 1 starring the feds as well as the NBA and the NFL, in which those leagues will warn that their players, while making public appearances, their homes were being targeted for jewelry and all sorts of cash items to be sold in the black market. And we're going to break this down layer by layer. But first, let's take a look at what the news report had to say on it.
The NBA are warning players about recent burglaries at some of the athletes' homes over the last 2 months. Kansas City Chiefs teammates Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were the victims of break-ins. So were Mike Conley Jr. of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks. In a memo to NFL players, the league urged such safety measures as being careful on social media, taking extra home security steps, and storing valuable items out of plain sight.
After the NBA issued this warning to its basketball players nationwide, saying the FBI is now connecting home burglaries targeting athletes and other high net worth individuals to South American criminal gangs, cautioning the gangs are well organized, sophisticated, and focused on cash and items that can be resold on the black market, such as jewelry, watches, and luxury bags.
By the time they go in, they know what they're looking for, and they're very quick.
That advisory following a similar warning from the NFL after the burglaries of at least 4 homes, 2 of them belonging to NBA players, including Milwaukee Bucks forward Bobby Portis Jr.
While I was at my game yesterday, I had a home invasion and they took most of my prized possessions.
Portis posted this footage of the break-in to Instagram. 2 NFL superstars were also targeted.
I might as well build the exact house I want.
Including Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes, whose 8-acre Missouri estate was featured on the Netflix series Quarterback, and tight end Travis Kelce's home in Leawood, Kansas.
When somebody posts your house online, that everybody now has your address.
According to the NBA memo, per the FBI, burglarized homes were all unoccupied and equipped with alarm systems that were not activated. Also noting that in most cases, no dogs were present.
They just know that this football team's schedule is going to be gone at this time. They get their teams out there to look at and see which ones are the most vulnerable.
Tonight, the NBA issuing extraordinary guidance, even advising its players make sure they alarm their luxury homes and consider a guard dog for extra protection.
First of all, if this is an organized international crime syndicate, what the hell is an alarm and a guard dog gonna do when the athletes have their schedule blasted and they're more likely taking part in events in a different state? It's not really going to do that much. And second of all, these athletes / celebrities, they're in a conundrum a bit, because Patrick Mahomes doing that Netflix documentary showing off the inside of a brand new home that he custom built is kind of tipping off these guys because they're watching. Best believe this is a double-edged sword with social media. These public posts are open for everyone to see, and you never know who's really watching. So him just participating in that Netflix kind of cross-marketing documentary kind of left him at a vulnerable state when it comes to how much money is he spending in this home, and they can see certain layouts. And finally, we're in this data-driven world where there's companies out there that are listing who lives where, how much square feet is a certain home, or what are the home's listing prices, what was the last price that it sold for. All these things are being tracked, and it's being stored online and even sold off, and even being sold off to God knows who. Especially with Bitcoin, there's a lot of information you can buy and everything is pretty much anonymous. But social media is such a powerful drug nowadays, especially for these multi-million-dollar athletes who in a way have to post and have to keep up with the masses by just sharing everything. But when is sharing too much enough? Because Bobby Portis being in town playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers on a Saturday night, that's when the robbery happened. His first reaction was to instantly go online and offer $40,000 for any information on where his belongings could be. And that right there is a mistake. It's almost as if he's confirming to that group that they robbed the right house, that the information that they probably purchased or the website they were looking at for the listings, the names, who owns these homes, how big is it? If they knew that they were coming for Bobby Portis's house, they know the information that they're getting is correct, which gives them more incentive to keep either buying or checking out that website or wherever that data is coming from. Social media is one hell of a drug, and the league could not have been happy about him posting information right away. Remember, this is his first reaction. It shows you the power of social media. The first thing he thought of is to publicize this situation.
What's good, Milwaukee? Over the last 4.5 seasons, I've considered Milwaukee as a home. I've grown here, I come here a boy, and elevated into a man. The love you guys give me here isn't something that I ever felt before in my NBA career. And I've been in the league now for 10 years, over a decade. Can you believe that? So I've always felt like I had to give it right back to you guys. I've tried to uplift the community and make Milwaukee a better place, giving food drives, talking to the youth on the regular, inviting underserved groups to the games, etc. You name it, I did it, and still doing it. As I've said before, this is a place I've considered home, so why not make my home a better place? I know we've gotten out to a horrible start to start the season, but while I was at my game yesterday, I had a home invasion and they took most of my prized possessions. If you have any info regarding this, please send the info to info@bobbyportis.com. Like I said, if you have any info regarding this, can you please send the info to info@bobbyportis.com. Any info that leads to the return of any of my belongings will be rewarded handsomely. I repeat, any info that leads to the return of any of my belongings will be rewarded handsomely. Let me know. Thank you.
Now that reward is $40,000 for information that leads to the return of his possessions. So just imagine if there's $40,000 for that information, you can only imagine what was inside the home. Once again, these guys, social media, it's a double-edged sword when you publicize too much. And the way he was talking, it almost sounds like he was reading out of a letter. He was reading like something that a PR department would construct for him. Now, if he was advised to go to social media and actually read a statement from a representation firm or wherever, this is tricky. This is an area they might not have that expertise in to tell him, hey, we might not yet want to publicize this until an investigation happens. Because there has been a lot of NBA players throughout the years that have gotten into similar situations while some were even at home, and none of this was publicized. Vince Carter in 2022 had over $100,000 stolen from his home. Paul Pierce this year had over $100,000 stolen from his home. And Michael Jordan in 2023, one of his homes was burglarized. And more recently, that was never really publicized too much, was Mike Conley's home getting robbed. And this happened while he was at a Minnesota Vikings game. And you know, the Vikings, once again, it's that cross-marketing promotion. They probably wanted fans to know that, hey, one of the players on the Minnesota Timberwolves team is at the game. But that's a double-edged sword because you never know who's watching. And this organized group, that pretty much became the confirmation for them to go on the information that they got, that this is Mike Conley's home. We know that he's at this game on the other side of town. We can hit up his spot right away. And the fact that the FBI had to warn the leagues to issue out statements to their players, that's how serious the situation is. But the league's responses is kind of light. It doesn't really make any sense. If this is an organized international group, what makes you think just a basic alarm system and some guard dogs is really going to alleviate the situation? It sounds like the leagues, especially with their most prominent players, are going to have to hire personal security. And I'm talking about guys who are the faces of the league. A guy like LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, a Stephen Curry. Those guys might need personal security hired by the league. But with this Patrick Mahomes situation, I'm wondering, because there's no doubt he is the face of the NFL, why wasn't there security for a guy that's a franchise, and not even a franchise, just the face of the league at the moment? This is real interesting, but the responses from the NFL and the NBA kind of told me everything I needed to know, with just telling the players, once again, just alarm their houses and get guard dogs. That's really not going to help for this highly sophisticated group, because they are well organized and they're doing sophisticated techniques such as surveillance drones, signal jamming devices, and more importantly, they're buying information. You can just tell they're buying the information on the listings, who's buying, who's sold, who's home, who's not. And if the feds are knocking down these leagues' doors, telling them to warn their players, you already know the situation is serious. And it would be crazy, knock on wood, if the league's figurehead, something happened to them while they were at their own home. And all this could have been avoided with the league hiring security. It sounds so simple, but it seems like the league is putting a situation where the feds brought it to their door and they're kind of putting it back on the players. Here's a list of recommendations the NBA told their players. Check their alarm systems regularly, use lock safes, remove real estate listings, interior photos of the home from publicly accessible websites. That right there is going to be something really difficult for them to do. The league is going to have to assist the players on that. They may have to hire a whole department when it comes to that. Because in this data-driven economy, there's a lot of entities that are collecting this information and they're selling it off. And quiet is kept, people that work for either the banks, different departments within the government, they're doing some under-the-table stuff too, personally. Not necessarily that institution, but just the workers that are kind of, I don't want to say corrupt, but they're veering off into their own venture. They're selling that information also. People who work in certain departments at the hospitals, they have a lot of information. All these major institutions have data that's very valuable. And on the black market, is worth a lot of money. And just continuing on to the NBA's list of recommendations for their players, they also told them to vet the contractors doing work on their property. Again, this is a very serious situation. This is I shouldn't be laughing, but this is very serious. The Fed's knocking on your door about this. Now you even got to consider vetting who even knows where you live, who's been inside your house, especially for some of those players in the Instagram thotties, aka Zion. You can't invite anyone to your house. But when you tie in the social media aspect to it, just guys instantly, almost like a muscle memory. Oh, something just happened to me, aka in the Bobby Portis situation. He just found out he got robbed and instantly goes to social media to let everyone know, even post the footage of the guys burglarizing his house. That right there might be the biggest hurdle for the NBA, the feds, everyone that's trying to alleviate this whole situation. That right there is going to be the biggest hurdle for them to get over. The social media aspect. Everywhere their players attend, they may want other fans to know that, hey, look, a famous player from this team is attending our event. It's going to be hard for them to control publicly where they're at 24/7. But hey, this has been an ongoing issue for the NBA. It's just been kept quiet throughout the years. A lot of players have been caught up in sticky situations, especially for those who have lived and played in Chicago. That seems to be the hub for athletes, celebrities, either for their homes to be getting robbed or for them to be getting robbed while in the home. But the NBA historically has been dealing with this situation. We've seen Eddie Curry get robbed at his home in Chicago. Reggie Miller's house got burned down. Same thing for Stephen Curry's father. His house was burned down. Sean Taylor of the NFL was murdered while he was in his home during a robbery. So these are very sticky times, especially with social media just having a tie to a person's celebrity. The branding and cross-marketing opportunity is just so big that it's hard not to stay public, like all their moves, them going on vacation. But we'll see how serious the leagues take it, because they're not going to want possibly one day for them to wake up and see that their franchise star or just the league's public figure having their image plastered all over the news with them being caught up in a sticky situation. It's going to be more damaging to the league than them just trying to hire personal security and spending that money for the players and just taking more onus of the situation. So as the streaming wars continue, ESPN find themselves in a very unique circumstance as their on-air personalities continue to flex their power in between negotiations, such as Stephen A. Smith, and also their main personality, their big star attraction, Pat McAfee, continues to flex his power while in a partnership with the network. But first, we're going to touch base on Stephen A. Smith. As we all know, he's currently in negotiations with ESPN, and they're about to launch their own direct-to-consumer app, their own streaming platform. So 2025 will be a big year for the network to see if they could survive and how well will they be able to compete with other streaming platforms. But when it comes to Stephen A. Smith, in recent years, he has been unapologetic of his value to the network and how he's going to approach coming into those negotiations, as he made an appearance on a random podcast talking about Bronny James's position with his father getting him into the league. And remember, the network that he works for is the main contributor in hyping up the image and the branding surrounding Bronny James. But let's take a look at Stephen A. Smith's tone as he's using this situation almost as a proxy, as a negotiation tactic that, hey, you guys need me going into streaming. Let's check it out.
Like, do you think they're kind of doing this as a favor?
But there's no, first of all, there's no question.
Yeah.
Let's cut the BS.
Sure.
There's no question that it's a favor. Bronny James did not do what it took to earn a spot on an NBA roster. That's the bottom line.
Now, that's just one quick layer of Stephen A. Smith negotiating in public and flexing his power, his leverage, the fact that ESPN is entering into a world of streaming that's more personality driven. So they're slowly converting their talent pool from just being a bunch of workers to guys that are more talent based and who already have an audience. That's why Pat McAfee's deal is so important. He brings in that audience into ESPN, and so they're in a partnership. And Stephen A. Smith is also trying to prove his value, going out, starting up his own network. And now, because all the years and sweat equity that he already put into the company, he now has no issue in stating and flexing his value to the network. But also in the second instance, Stephen A. Smith ratchets it up one other level by calling out a NFL organization, specifically their ownership, when it comes to how bad their team is performing. And keep in mind, ESPN is in a major partnership with the NFL. It's rare that you see them even criticize ownership to the degree that Stephen A. Smith is about to here. But before we get to the soundbite, just want to add a bit more context, because ESPN years ago, in the early 2000s, tried to get into the content business by starting up a drama series called Playmakers, in which they show all the behind the scenes of what's going on with the NFL team. It was a fictional story, but the way the drama series was depicted, it definitely mirrored real life of what goes on with these sports franchises. You got the star running back having a drug problem. He had to inject urine into his private area just to pass a piss test. You had another star running back having outside children. All kinds of drama that kind of mirrored what could possibly be happening behind the scenes with these NFL teams. And the series was so successful that ESPN canceled it after one season. And it's because the NFL let them know, and this is the word around the campfire, that if they ever aired another episode of that series, they'll never see another NFL game on their network. So keep in mind, the NFL and ESPN is under a major partnership, and ESPN has kowtowed to the NFL many a times. They stopped all their reporting about CTE and any after effects about playing football just to please the NFL. And we've seen how the NFL operated a few years after that series Playmakers made its debut on ESPN. They gave them the worst Monday Night Football games. So ESPN is very conscious of their relationship with the NFL. So watch Stephen A. Smith knowing right here that his network is about to enter streaming, and they're going to need great on-air personalities who can bring in an audience. And he's trying to prove his value right here, but he's flexing his muscle. You guys check it out.
Because this is a performance-based business. Nobody's talking about your personal life. Nobody's gotten into anything. Your performance was put on public display, and you were 20 games under 500. You have been abhorrent. You have been awful as the quarterback for the New York Giants. And on top of it all, they let go of Saquon Barkley to make sure they took care of you. They gave you the bag instead of him, which is another blemish. But here's the biggest thing, and I'm going to end it by saying this. The New York Giants, respectfully, shut the hell up. Y'all are awful as an organization. You won a Super Bowl in 2007. You won a Super Bowl in 2011. Outside of that, since 2011, the Giants have made, that's 13 years, the Giants have made the playoffs twice. They've won one playoff game. And you got the nerve to sit up there and put on and call the officers and complain to executives about somebody that went on national television to do their job. Why don't you do your damn job as an organization? Y'all are sorry.
Agreed.
Y'all are pathetic. The only reason why you get away with it is because the Jets have been worse. Because they ain't make the damn playoffs since 2010. And you got the nerve to sit up there and call the network because you want to whine and moan about your ineptitude being put on public display. Well, maybe if you let people watch it for free and then charge them for coming to watch your sorry asses, maybe you would have been in a position to say something. But you didn't. Go to break. They ain't worth another syllable. Go to
Oh man, Stephen A. Smith is he may have barked up the wrong tree right here. Cause the NFL, man, the NFL, being an NFL owner in this country is almost like being anointed king. It's the closest thing. But once again, Stephen A. Smith is negotiating in public right here. That relationship between ESPN and the NFL is major. And ESPN knows the NFL is very sensitive about their shit. But sometimes in negotiations, things are not just about money. It's also about the power that's going to be given. We've seen Stephen A. Smith in his last deal work a lot more shows and at the same time become the face of the network. But when his co-hosts feel offended about something he said, we've seen him get suspended. But his peers, like Colin Cowherd, can go to FS1 and start up his own network and actually open up different shows and put people in positions to work those shows. A power that Stephen A. Smith clearly didn't have, as he's expressed over the years that he was trying to get the network to let go of Max Kellerman, and that alone was a fight. And Stephen A. is definitely looking at this, especially after that Dana White incident where the man was clearly caught on camera smacking the shit out of his wife. But yet ESPN, because they're in a UFC partnership, kept quiet about it. but Stephen A. Smith could be number one for 10 plus years, and his co-host feels offended by something he said, and yet that causes him to get suspended and having to issue a public apology. So the deal he might be looking for will not just be about the money. And this is where we insert the personality of Pat McAfee. Make no mistake about it, Stephen A. Smith loves pocket watching. And the fact that Pat is in a partnership with the network, he doesn't have to kowtow to any middle management and their rules. He speaks directly to the people that's running the show, and he lets it be known his value. But once again, that puts ESPN in a very tricky spot, because Pat, being in that partnership, understands his leverage over ESPN as they enter streaming. They definitely do need him as he brings in an audience into that network. But watch him live on air flex that power and leverage over the network as he criticizes the way that they handle how they get content out involving him on their social media accounts. You guys check it out.
Games are happening. So I go to X. I'm like, all right, what's going on? Well, let me go to the college football account. You know, this should have me.
They'll tell me.
Nothing. Not a single activity. So then I'm like, well, why would that be the case? So then ESPN's actual account puts out the list, puts out the whole thing. I'm like, thank you, ESPN account. But shouldn't the college football account be doing that? Shouldn't that be something?
Yeah, definitely.
Shouldn't that be just like a one-stop shop for everything that's going on, especially in this brand new time? You would think it'd be the case. So hopefully that takes place. I think the people running that have no idea what they're doing. Sure. But hopefully, inevitably, that'll change.
Or even like highlights. You know, I'm watching a big college game on ESPN. You know, you watch NFL games, you watch NBA, you watch, hey, as soon as something happens, touchdown happens, sack, interception, I can go right to the account, see it, maybe post it myself. None of it.
What about the storylines, too? Like storylines like, hey, Georgia, this is a must-win game.
Yeah.
You know, you would think maybe... No, nothing.
What the hell are they doing?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. It's 3 million followers, too. That's a pretty big...
That's a big
massive. It's pretty big. At some point, it had to have something, right? Because people don't just follow that for no reason.
I mean, nobody's probably on X. Who's using X these days?
Yeah, I guess that's
dying platform.
Oh, yeah, I remember that a couple years ago. I was giving a full speech by somebody at ESPN about how we're not using Twitter anymore. Okay? Nobody's on it. And they started putting these numbers up. Look how many people are on YouTube. I'm like, well, you can't just take every Google search number and put that in there. Yep, that's who's on it.
Yes, you can.
Look how many people are on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, so every human that has an account, okay, you're going to compete that against Twitter, of course. And then look at TikTok's rise, and look how many little. And Elon bought it. This thing ain't even going to exist on Monday. So don't even do it. It's like, did that one win the presidency? Did this one over here? Did this one? Does this one kind of have a little bit of say, maybe? And do people get all their news from this particular app? I think so. So maybe a little bit more of activity there from ESPN, especially if you're going to own all the rights.
Yeah.
To the playoffs.
All the biggest games.
If you're going to spend billions of dollars on this brand new playoff, maybe there should be a vehicle of information on your phone that people can just go to very easily and see it all. But what will we know?
Now, once again, ESPN, they're in a compromising position right now. They do not have the leverage entering into 2025, launching that app, that ESPN app, to not have these major personalities in them. And these guys are definitely flexing their power. And interesting enough, the politicizing of these social media applications, labeling Twitter a pro-Trump and a pro-Elon platform, they do not have the power and leverage to tie Pat McAfee into that. We've seen after the election, there's been an attempt to blackball Twitter and to make Blue Sky the new Twitter platform, as all writers and people that are working at these major networks that were on Kamala's side tried to get fans to leave the platform, as well as numerous celebrities we've seen leave the platform since. But Pat McAfee cannot be tied into that. He understands where the audience is at, and he's not going to be tied down to some ideology from the network, because at the end of the day, he's not an employee. He's a partner. Once again, these guys have no problem flexing their power on ESPN airwaves. That's how much the network has lost their leverage heading into streaming, as the business now is more personality driven. It's not necessarily about a network anymore. It's crazy how the landscape changes, and now ESPN find themselves almost in no man's land trying to pick a side. But we'll see how it plays out. 2025 is going to be a big year for the network, and they're put in a very interesting spot with Stephen A. Smith calling out the Giants ownership, which they have major relationships with the network. And he even called them out about calling the network Like, this is how much the personalities have obtained a new level of power. And we're watching this play out in real time. So this season, we're seeing a lot of injuries happen really early on. A lot of stars are affected. Even the standings, as we know, going well deep into the season, will be a lot different due to guys like Durant, Kawhi Leonard being out, Ja Morant, Luka, etc. We've never really seen it on this type of level before, and Adam Silver has made adjustments throughout the years, especially in 2016, entering that CBA. They shortened the preseason down by a week, thus cutting down on the back-to-backs during the regular season. They got rid of the 4 games in 5 nights. And we used to hear a lot from Adam Silver regarding to, quote-unquote, it's the science, load management. And there's nothing wrong with science, but we're all wondering within that experiment, did they take into consideration the rest period being different for an NBA player that's supposed to be going through that grueling 82-game schedule in 6 months? It's not the same rest period for a regular person. And players of the past did not deal with all these soft tissue injuries, especially early on in the season. But we're going to break this down layer by layer because there's a lot of things coming in all at once. Adam Silver is trying to pivot away from the load management culture due to him entering streaming. The NBA is about to head into a brand new lucrative deal with so many streaming platforms. And in a time where ratings are starting to dip, there's more competition out there, especially with the younger viewers, due to them having so many options. The league has to make sure they have the best product on the floor. And keep in mind, these brand new platforms have ways of measuring the audience and the advertisements that are ran against it. So these brand new ad-driven models, unlike old school network television, they can actually be measured and they can actually be sent to each individual person based off their taste. So in order for the NBA to be viewed as lucrative for these streaming platforms like Amazon, Peacock, Netflix, they're gonna have to bring in the ratings and perform. But again, we're gonna break this down layer by layer. First, we're gonna hear directly for the players themselves. Gilbert Arenas, when he's not trying to go viral, sometimes he gives really good game. Him and his crew sat down and they spoke about how they used to train, and these various regimens helped their bodies get built up for the grueling 82-game schedule. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
But my thing is with everybody, right? I'm saying besides somebody that broke their hand, right? Somebody got a couple of dudes that broke their hand,
Murray
right?
with a hand injury.
And Hartenstein, he broke his hand, right?
Yeah.
And the knee stuff that guys came into the season with.
Yeah, pre-existing conditions.
Everything else is what?
A lot of hammies, honestly.
Hammies, calves,
hips.
Right? Hip, strength.
That's a fall, but yeah.
But that's
being
frail.
Like muscle. These are
muscle things that's not built up, dog.
Shit is
soft
bone.
tissue injuries, muscle shit that ain't. Did you have?
Never.
I never did. I never had a hamstring injury. I never had a calf.
I ran track too, so
I never had a calf injury. I never.
But it was in pre-draft.
We talked about it yesterday.
It wasn't in
before the show, right?
The season or nothing like that.
I'm telling you, it's a direct correlation, man. You know it. You know it. 2 days, man. I know people don't want to hear it. I know it's this new generation of basketball. Okay, cool. You're paying these dudes a lot of money, great. But if they're not available, dude, them people, listen, man. By that 5th practice of 2 days, that's the 3rd day.
Third day.
The third day is by your 5th practice.
For those of you that are not in the know, 2 days is 2 practices, 2 hard practices per day. That's really how the training camps kind of starts off. But because right now the preseason is shortened up and a lot of the key guys, a lot of star players are missing from those initial training camps, they're not even starting off getting the 2 days, which is in reality to get them ready for the regular season.
Everybody is walking in that motherfucker.
Yeah. Yep.
No, don't want to wear shoes. Man, you walking in that motherfucker like, man, where is the hot, cold foot bath, the tub?
And those whip massages and those are whip.
Hey, you looking for anything that's not gonna hurt in that moment by your 5th practice. Then These dudes only doing 5 practices, man.
For
training camp.
For training camp.
A week. They're not, man, come on, man. If you're not walking in there gingerly, they think because they work out all summer that they ready for training camp and they ready to go play 82 games or they ready for NBA season. Dude, they used to kick our ass in training camp.
While we training, 2-3 times, we running the sand dunes and running the beach and playing 5-on-5, 8-9 hours.
Dude.
Now, one thing I would say for this is that these guys got to take into consideration a lot of the star players now are major assets for these franchises. Their net worths have actually ballooned times 10 in order to buy an NBA franchise. And a lot of that has to do with the star player being attached to it. How much ticket sales, jersey sales, merchandising, marketing, etc. you can get out of that player. When LeBron had returned to Cleveland and the net worth of that franchise had jumped up over $500 million, that was a signal to the public in real time for them to get a bird's eye view of how much a star player can impact the net worth of a franchise. And I'm wondering if a lot of these owners are kind of thinking in civilian mode. What I mean is that they're non-athlete guys that are not going to go through that 82 game schedule. So they're like, oh, let's not tire him out. But they're forgetting that he still has to go through that 82 game schedule and he could possibly get blown out with a hammy or any other type of injury because his body had not built up the calluses during the preseason and training camp.
2%, 3% body fat. We done lost 30, 40 pounds going to training camp. And fit practice, we all sitting like, damn, I thought I was in shape. No.
In the city a month before, revving up, getting ready for training camp, right? We're in the city a month before getting ready for...
September 1.
So to me, it was right after Labor Day, right? Okay. I went to wherever I was playing right after Labor Day, I'm there, right?
Important holiday to celebrate.
Right? But I'm just spending with my family. That's my last.
Yeah.
We're going to cook and do all that shit, and I'm going to leave the next day.
Mm-hmm.
All festivities stop. I stopped smoking, drinking. Mm-hmm. Labor Day is my last day, and I stopped cold turkey, and I'm getting ready for the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go wherever I'm playing. Most of the time, it was in Denver, so altitude is playing a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking I'm ready. And training camp still.
Yeah.
Dog. These dudes getting injuries because they not building up, breaking it down, man. Like,
see, the pain that we would feel in training camp in a controlled environment is gone. Now, instead of training camp and going through all this back and forth, battling, you're just playing games.
Yeah.
Again.
And they're also playing games in which the games are every other night. And teams are barely practicing in those off days because they have to travel. They're really just doing walkthroughs for the most part. So you look at where them missing training camp and just kind of building their body up. And if they're trying to recover and kind of get into shape during the regular season, it's even more difficult now than in past years. Because back then, players would have 4 games in 5 nights. That sometimes they would have a Monday through a Thursday off before their next game. So there was more rest time. There was more time to get harder practices in. And now these players, they don't have these things anymore. Pretty much their off days are walkthroughs.
Other competitors who are, you don't know, they moving in real time, making you adjust in real time. You trying to do moves that you ain't been practicing for a while, and you pulling shit that you never pulled before.
It's just, we've been there, man, and it's, yeah, I didn't see a lot of hamstring injuries. I ain't seeing a lot of calf strains. If dudes wanted to get out of training camp, they'd say their back was tight.
Back tight.
My back tight.
Probably a little growing sometimes.
But other than that, they used to kick our ass, man, and was unapologetic about it. And dudes was playing a lot. That's probably why a lot of us had fucking cause they was we used to work, man. Like our era was full of surgeries and shit.
But it seemed like they're hurting more now than any other. It's like they're getting so much rest that is leading to more injuries.
Bingo. And the regular season schedule now, the way Adam Silver had made it, where it's a game, day off, game, day off, game, day off. Sometimes 2-3 weeks will go by before a team actually has 2 days off in a row. So a player that missed training camp, that missed preseason, there's less time for players to actually get their stamina up and get their bodies up to game speed. There's way less time for that nowadays.
Well, that's really what it is. Like, you're not doing anything. You're not
not practicing.
Like somebody, you know, they was like, why did you, like, that was a horrible take with the Bronny James playing against the G League guys. And I'm saying, this is not 2000s where we're going at each other the whole time. We're practicing. I'm going against Larry Hughes. You know what I mean? We're challenging each other. This era don't do that. This era, there's no second five versus the five. It's usually second five versus the fucking coaches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
AKA, that sounds like a walkthrough. Once again, it's unfortunate, but teams, they do not practice as much. And one season the fans could really see that the teams weren't really practicing was the season in which all NBA teams participated in arenas without fans. I believe that was the bubble season. The 2020 to 2021 season, when fans started coming back in all the way in April, March. And for the most part, the NBA season that year was mostly played in empty arenas. And guys, especially with COVID protocols, were not practicing a lot. And that's why you've seen record amounts of scoring from the lowest ranked team all the way to the tippy top.
Ex players that's out of shape, you know what I mean, going against the second unit. They not challenging the second unit like that. So it seems like in hindsight, it's better to go against somebody who wants his position, who wants to start him, where he can sit there and do that battle to battle every day to get up his battle mode game. Because D'Lo is not going to be going. D'Lo ain't going at him like that. D'Lo barely practicing. He's going to get his shots up in the corner, do all his little shit. He's not practicing and going hand to hand. They're saving themselves for the game now. And that's the problem with this generation.
Original question?
And it wouldn't shock me if ownership has something to do with that. They do not want their multi-million-dollar, $100 million guys getting injured in practice. So their approach might be a little bit too cautious. But again, they're thinking like regular civilians, not realizing, these guys got to be like an engine. They got to be revved up, and their bodies got to be built up to actually go through that grueling schedule. Because if you just throw them out there, their tires are pretty much going to get blown out.
Preparation, weightlifting, nutrition, recovery, maintenance. All of these things take at least 12 hours out of the day if you do it properly. I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it because I don't have a resume or a career that's going to reflect what kind of information I want to give to the youth where it can be validated and verified.
Now, that right there was a great point brought up by Rashad McCants. That right there is very unfortunate. There's a culture around today's younger NBA players. They sort of don't take any advice unless the veteran has a certain type of resume, and it's unfortunate. But a lot of today's young players do have that approach. They're not going to listen to you unless the results of your success measures up to a certain level. Then to them, your information is validated. But let's say you were a role player, they might not accept the information as well. It's very unfortunate, but good game comes from all kinds of people. You just got to take in what applies to you and tailor it in a way where you can improve. But unfortunately, it's a real thing. Players are looking for guys that have certain resumes to actually stamp the information as valid.
But I can give you a formula that can get you halfway there, me being somebody that had a genetic advantage because I prepared and did push-ups and did squats and did all the little things to keep my body at a maintenance level throughout my whole career. So when I had to adjust it, I found myself getting more injured. The adjustment meant all the bands and all the low impact things that starts to now give you the freedom to feel like you can move without any resistance. That creates resistance on the muscles, and your hamstrings can get weary, and all those things are happening because you don't strengthen that stuff. They don't want to listen to certain guys because, you got to have a certain validity of fucking, success. You got to show it. And that's unfortunate because I'm not in the field to show the success of how people want to see it.
And that's facts. Sometimes the best lessons come from those who took L's in life. They have the life experience and they can pass it on to you, and you could take what you can from with a grain of salt and apply it to you.
I only do my own thing, so I can only show my own success. But I know for a fact that those guys that's out there getting hurt with them hamstrings and them little hip pointers, they can't lift a weight. They couldn't lift you if you jumped on their back. They wouldn't be able to hold you up. They wouldn't know how to. So do you blame them or do you blame the teachers?
Now, the trainers a lot of players practice with, I don't know when the league became like this. Everyone kind of somewhat uses the same trainer. That's never a good idea. But a lot of these trainers, I don't know, man. Like these guys, it looks like they somehow finessed the bag, and we don't know who's really getting better. All these highlight tapes. I mean, whose idea is to post all these tapes on social media of Ben Simmons shooting a jump shot every summer, but we never see the results? Nobody's really practicing game speed. They're playing scrimmages against a bunch of, you don't know who these players are, and the defense is really questionable. And according to them, this is training. But as Kenyon Martin alluded to earlier, they thought that they were ready for training camp with all those scrimmages, but when they used to hit training camp, they used to get their ass kicked every single time, even when they thought they were in shape.
That's my question, because I can only look at the student and be like, he doing it wrong.
That's these trainers, man.
He doing it wrong. Why he doing it like that? And why you keep getting hurt?
Yeah.
Why you got knick-knack injuries that's an injury that's keeping you out? We all know, man, there's two guys that just look at that shit and be like, yo, and I know you look at it and you look at it. I know you look at it. AI and Cole was looking at it like, man, go out there and play, man. These two dudes played through everything. And somebody who had microfractures, so I had microfracture, I know what that is. You know what I'm saying? We've all had it, so it's like, to come back and want to play after that, you got to be a certain type of warrior. But these guys ain't warriors if you got knick-knack injuries that you're not taking care of. And you had the whole summer to strengthen your legs, conditioning your body, make sure you at optimal level for training camp. Even what y'all said, training camp did mean a lot for us because we were a different breed. They training them like they privileged already. They've already made it. They treating them all like vets.
They treat me, it's like they treating them, it's like.
And that's the problem with the ownership groups. We see with the Philadelphia 76ers, look how they treated Ben Simmons all these years. And they're still somewhat pacifying and doing the same thing to Joel Embiid. But again, unlike when Rashard McCants, Kenyon Martin, and Gilbert Arenas played, these guys are over $100 million guys, and that's just their contract for 3 to 4 years. So some of these guys almost worth $500 million to their franchise in just a short span of 7 to 8 years. But Dante DiVincenzo had did a sit down where he was asked about how it was to play for Tom Thibodeau, a coach where, especially among media members and certain players throughout the league, he has a reputation of running guys to the ground. And Dante gives great game of how playing for Tibbs allowed their bodies to build up a certain regiment where they're pretty much not even feeling the aches of pain even through the offseason because their bodies are built to last for a long time. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
What's your, it's a random tangent, but like, what's your mentality going into a game where you know you're playing 46? Like,
Bro,
you might not come out.
But like, everybody says this is it was so much fun. Like when you hoop, you want to hoop. You want to be out there all right, what Josh Hart was doing, and I don't know about all that. Like
he went like 5 games without checking out or something, right?
Yeah, Josh is nuts, and he'll still complain about something. Like if he came out and be like, "Damn, why the hell did I come out for 30 seconds?" And but like, nah, it wasn't that. Like you just go in like, all right, let's win. And Tibbs, you trust in whatever his decision is, and we were winning. Like you can't knock it. Like we were winning, and I think. You get to the point where like after the season, I actually felt my body felt really good after last year. Like it wasn't at the end of the year. I was like, damn, I ain't got nothing left. Like I know a lot of guys got hurt and everything, but me personally, afterwards I was like, damn, we were 1 game away from.
You also emptied the clip in Game 7.
I was ready to go to Boston because I think that last game is when Jaylen got hurt. So if we would have won that game. Oh, I would have went through hell with Drew and Derek.
Him and Alex Burks, they almost did.
Yeah, me and AB would have went through hell the next series.
And most of these guys, they got hurt. Jaylen, I believe he broke his wrist. They were like bone issues, but they were not like soft tissue issues. Same thing for Josh Hart.
You say something interesting about like after the season, the way you felt. I've obviously, my minutes have fluctuated in different seasons, right? And now I'm at this place where I'm not playing as much. Like I used to play 30, 35 and, I was playing 82 games, the whole thing. You actually build up a tolerance for the load. Like everyone talks about load management and, sit this guy out. And I'm not like knocking that, but there is a downside to that in that you're not building the actual resistance to withstand that. So when you get to a point in the season, like playoffs are a physical grind. You're not playing back-to-backs, but you're playing every other, mostly, unless you're traveling in between. And if you haven't built up that tolerance to extend your minutes to 40 or whatever, if you're a starter, then all of a sudden you're doing it for the first time, your body's feeling different. Like it's so you guys, it's funny. I know you guys did have injuries, but you guys could like tolerate it as much as anybody.
Well, that's the thing is like early on, my body actually felt worse in terms of soreness and this and that. Cause like everybody's like, Dante, you played, what you just said, you played X amount of minutes, but like early on in the season, I wasn't playing. Like I wasn't playing a lot. So like it evened out at the end of the year. But throughout the year, you just build up a tolerance. And at the end of the year, you're like Tibbs gets this rap of practice. But bro, we were playing, day off, playing, come and watch film, playing. Like
he's letting you know right there, they don't really practice. Even with a coach like Tom Thibodeau, who has a reputation of working guys hard in practice, today's current NBA schedule, it's really difficult for players to get in a good hard practice with this day off game. And the reason why this scheduling is the way it is because in 2016 with that CBA, the league had kind of orchestrated a shorter preseason by a week. And then thus they sacrificed the 4 games in 5 nights and actually spread the games out. And this was the compromise. It's game, day off, game, day off. So right now there's actually less time for a player who missed training camp and preseason to actually get up to speed during the regular season. That's why we see Embiid kind of struggle a little bit right here.
So much you can do. Like I will say, like he tries to get the most out of every single day, but it's not, running up and down and then go play for it. If we were doing that, I wouldn't be able. There's no way you can.
What's your like favorite recovery regimen? I'm trying to steal something right now, so.
To be honest with you, I kind of go in on every off day. I'm a big kind of cold tub guy. I'm a big I like to just get the body moving for a little bit. I go in and get some shots up, and it really changed last year. I think with having the success that I was having, it kind of changed stuff for me.
Now, right there, you heard about his off day. You're getting great insight right here. This is the beautiful thing about players having their own podcast now. The off days with no game was just him going in the ice tub, him getting shots up, probably looking at game film and a walkthrough. That's how it is for most NBA teams with this brand new scheduling.
Even when I was, I go to a game and like I said, I'm getting 10 up and I might go 0 for 10, but there's 10 going up. And I was still going the next day, shoot my shots, get in the cold tub, get my body work, and then go home and chill with the fam. But there was no secret. I just like going in.
Once again, right there, you don't hear any mention of a hard practice. It's really rare because teams are barely getting 2 days off. They got to wait at least 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes a few teams even have to wait 2 months just to have 2 days off. And we got to factor in travel, hotel, family situations, time zones, etc. But overall right here, we're getting a great 3-dimensional perspective of why we're seeing so many early season injuries, especially affecting the star players. It's unfortunate, but Adam Silver might have to go back to the drawing table and actually examine certain key situations and maybe even get more insight from former players that went through the old rigorous scheduling and kind of fuse it in with current day players and try to find out what's the perfect medium, because they cannot measure a rest period like an average citizen. They have to measure the rest period for a NBA player that's going to go through that 82 game grueling schedule. Now, Jamal Crawford had to sit down with Theo Penson where they gave great insight to why some of your favorite players are still not in the league while others are allowed to bow out gracefully. The NBA is an entertainment-based business, and there are a lot of politics. Well, who's allowed to stay in? We see guys like Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr., Dwight Howard, Pat Bev, Carmelo Anthony, and even Allen Iverson had to almost retire without being on a team for over a year. While some of those other players I just mentioned are still trying to find their way, perhaps playing overseas or even taking a year off to kind of build their game back up to be more of a moldable player for what teams are looking for today. But we'll break this down layer by layer, as in the second part of this, we'll hear from Rich Paul as he spoke about how some younger players have to let go of their ego and become that player that teams are looking for to fit into a role. And that's how a lot of talent gets wasted in the NBA. But first, we'll hear from Jamal Crawford and Theo Pinson about how some players are not necessarily forced out, but they find themselves at a crossroads because they're seeing guys make teams that have way far lesser talent, and they know they could come in to be that role player. But again, the NBA is a business. We see guys like Bronny James. The reason why he's on the Lakers is because his jersey sales are about to pass his father's. So there is a financial incentive of these teams keeping certain players on teams. And like any other product, they always want to promote their younger and fresher new talent. So that's why some guys are kind of forced out, because there's no real financial incentive of having them there with jersey sales, etc. And other guys like Vince Carter, who have a name, are allowed to bow out on their own terms. And look no further than LeBron. Of course, he's going to be able to bow out on his own terms because he's the league's moneymaker. But as far as being relevant, as far as competition, he is nowhere near it at this current moment. But we'll check out what Theo Pinson and Jamal Crawford spoke on. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you stopping as much as you love the game, how hard was that, and how did you do that transition?
So think about this. I played for 20 years. I get paid to talk the game on TV. And I couldn't watch it. I didn't start watching basketball again until Kobe passed, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, real talk. Because I was like, I couldn't figure out why I had 51 points in my last game. I averaged 31. That was my highest scoring month of my career. I'm 39 years old. I did off the bench, 31.6 assists. I can't even get a minimum job. I just won teammate of the year. So you can't question my character. I couldn't figure out the answer. And it took me a while. And it leads me into coaching. And these kids saved me.
Now for Jamal Crawford, very unfortunately, he does move the needle when it comes to the optics on the court. But off the court, there's a few optics that are going against him. The vet minimum, so owners will have to pay you a lot more. And also, you're not really moving the needle when it comes to jersey sales or ticket sales. People are not necessarily going to go the extra mile because Jamal Crawford is playing. So that's where the more business side politics kind of comes into play here. And we also got to factor in today's NBA has a large talent pool globally that's coming into the league. We're going to see more late first round to second round picks actually thrive in this league and become perennial all-stars from season to season. So it's going to be harder for vets to actually maintain their spots. And this does have a trickle-down effect because younger players coming into today's league are going to have a lot less breathing room to make mistakes because just the talent pool is just so high. They're going to be competing against vets, competing against second-round picks, late first-round picks, and also former, top lottery picks that quite yet have not established themselves in the league. So there is a clusterfuck of talent, and it makes sense why the league is actually trying to expand and create teams in Seattle and Las Vegas. The talent pool is really out there, man. The league has never been so talented, all the way from the first player to the 15th man on the bench. It's never been like this in this whole history.
They really did, because I needed my passion to be with basketball and coaching my son and coaching these kids. It made my journey go full circle again. So now I'm teaching things I learned at 19 years old that I haven't even thought about since then. You know what I mean? So that's why coaching these kids is the most important thing I can do around the game. More than me playing, more than me talking the game, it's being with them and helping them see them through.
That's amazing, because I know we do this to talk to the people out there who listen, but that's literally, I feel like he was talking to me.
Wow.
That's literally
deep.
what I've been going through the last year.
Wow.
Because I'm pretty much done. I don't know if I'm gonna do it anymore. And I ain't even said this out loud, but I am now. Because AJ and them, they don't even understand. I just reached out and they gave me an opportunity.
Right.
And I love it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And I personally couldn't understand how I didn't get a job this year. I was hooping. I'm a great teammate.
Oh, you can't ever. A1.
You don't have to worry about me for nothing. I'm gonna be on time. I'm gonna do my job no matter what.
Low maintenance.
I'm low maintenance and I'm out the way. And you can count on me no matter what. I've been put in a game in the third quarter and you won't, and I will go in there and produce.
Right.
Yeah. I will produce.
Right.
I don't care if I don't score, I'm gonna give you something.
Yeah.
My last year in Dallas, I knew I wasn't gonna play, but they said, Theo, we only trust you to take the ball out.
Right.
At the end of the game. You go watch the Laker game when I was in Dallas, my second to last year. They put me in the game at the end of the game just to take the ball out. I played for 3 seconds. Just to get the ball in. Get it to Kyrie. Go make a play. Get the fuck out the way. Get it. I've always done that. And I couldn't understand. Shot 40 from 3, played point guard and everything. Like, damn, I guarded Rudy Gobert the year before.
Yeah.
I can play literally
Anything,
whatever position you need me to play.
And the thing you just said, right? You're saying and he's saying the stuff people can see. Let me give you a window into the world they can't see. The days of training every single day, not knowing a call is gonna come. The days you're in the gym by yourself, the battles you're playing, where you don't know, like, then you may make 1,000 shots a day and be like, what the fuck am I doing this for?
Yeah.
The mental games that go into it, running the extra sprints, running the extra miles, not knowing that there's some on the other side, but there is some on the other side, you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah.
And now the brand new CBA is going to make that life even harder because owners now found a way to not even sign permanent guys as a 15th man. They're going to be on this fringe two-way kind of deals in order to kind of maintain cap flexibility. Because right now with, teams don't want to go over the second apron. So there's like a clause. I don't want to say there's a clause. There's like a finesse that teams are really going to try to get off and make trades during the preseason, while teams are allowed to have more than 15 players on the roster. That's what the Knicks did with the Karl Anthony Towns trade. But now teams like the Knicks, they're like probably a couple of $1,000 about to touch a certain apron. They're kind of keeping fringe two-way guys on the team, and they're signing their rookies at lower amounts. There's a lot of finessing going on. So teams don't necessarily have to keep a permanent NBA salary player. I believe 1 through 13, they can keep 12, I believe. And then the rest could be about two-way players. So guys like Theo Pinson are going to find it a lot harder to actually stay on the NBA roster, because to an NBA owner, especially an owner that has a bunch of star players on the team that he's paying, it's not going to make financial sense. This is where the CBA kind of hurts from the middle tier players, guys like Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, that type of talent where guys are productive, but teams are not necessarily going to want to pay them a lot of money. And it hurts also the guys who actually could make an NBA roster consistently, especially going into their veteran years. Owners are not going to want to pay them. They're going to try to keep them on two-way contracts. And if the amount doesn't add up so they can stay under the cap, they're not even going to sign those guys, no matter how much talent they got. It's very unfortunate. A lot of politics here at play.
Like, there's so many of those moments where it's like, man, I'm fighting a ghost right now. And that wears at you and it tears you, like, man, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And that, for me, honestly, that's where it came to. And it was like, you know what? I'm tired of somebody else having the control of my life, of when I can play or not. Yeah. It's over. I'm not doing it. I'm taking control of my career. I've earned that.
That's absolutely where I am, because that's why I say the ball isn't everything, because you, CJ, Maul, like, I've had so many opportunities thrown at me and everyone's saying, like, you can do this. We would love for you to come.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute. You want me right? You want me to be here.
Theo.
Wait a minute.
Theo,
I haven't felt this shit in a minute.
Yeah. That's
you know
crazy,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
You value me. That's all people in the world want.
Yes.
They want to be fucking valued. You see what I'm saying?
That's
That for me, that's what it is for me, bro. Like I just can't. I'm tired. I'm just mentally tired.
I was drained
of it dictating, because you're uprooting everyone. Like I got a family, I got a fiance and a kid, and I'm uprooting them going to another city, and I don't know when.
You don't know when.
They're like,
it's a ghost,
they're
bro,
like,
I'm telling you.
What's next? I don't know. I don't have an. But now I can
It's
tell
clear,
you.
yeah.
We in Dallas.
Yes.
We living in Dallas and we good.
Yeah.
And I got you. You know what I'm saying? That's
that
beautiful.
part.
It's a peace of mind.
It's a peace of mind. It's like you did it. You took control back of your situation. I had to allow myself to get out of shape because it was driving me crazy. I know I could still play. So I had to let the game, okay, I can't play every day. Now I'm just going to play once a week. Now I'm just going to play. And that gave me peace. Like I'm not doing this every day. Also, now I do it just for cardio.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I love it. It's no like, if I do this, I can get like, nah, I just love it. I'm just getting a sweat.
AJ asked me, when's the last time you worked? I said, AJ, I just hoop.
Unfortunately, hoopers like Theo Penson are going to have it harder going forward. The next generation of guys that are in between that, G League and NBA, kind of making a roster, hopping from team to team, that life is going to get even harder because owners now, they're always going to be looking for players that are either going to take a pay cut, always be on two-way, or just looking for potential. You know how owners fall in love with potential. They rather pay that, and the league is just getting a lot younger and younger, and there's a lot more talent coming in every single season. So that mental dedication is going to be even more stringent. But that same dedication and humbleness that Theo Penson and Jamal Crawford displayed, just to be still attached to the game, what they're willing to sacrifice, be a great teammate, do what the team needs them to do. That same thought pattern is what a lot of younger players today are struggling, as we see an influx of a lot of high-performing raw talent, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily translate. Jonathan Kuminga, Killian Hayes, there's a lot of players coming into the league, and that transition into molding their game into an NBA play style that results in winning, there's a lot of clashes there. And super mega sports agent Rich Paul sat down with Carmelo Anthony and they spoke on this. How a lot of younger players are struggling with that transition into the league, and a lot of them do need to carry that mindset that Theo Penson and Jamal Crawford had at the end of their careers, because not all these players are going to come into the NBA and be in a position to have the green light to take a bunch of shots. I mean, just looking at this year's potential lottery teams, the Jazz, the Blazers, the Nets, they might have enough room for a player to come through and just have the green light to make mistakes, take a bunch of shots, average maybe his 16 to 20 points a game. But other than that, there's not a lot of room for the rest of the NBA teams, as there's an influx of talent in almost every single team, whether they're struggling or they're good. The Wizards have Alex Sarr, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma. The Pistons have a bunch of young talent over there. The Spurs have Stephen Castle, Wemby, Vessel. The Bulls have Patrick Williams, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball. It's sort of 50-50 for a lottery pick to come to that team and just have the green light to do what he wants. So you see where a lot of rookies, unfortunately, no matter how high their draft profile is, are going to have to adapt this mindset that Jamal Crawford and Theo Penson had. Or else that potential talent just ends up getting wasted, especially in the parity era that the league is headed into today. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
What's the better path?
Like, what will deliver the most complete player to the league after that journey?
To me, I think, for me, what I've learned just in the past couple of years, going to a school or playing the most fundamental basketball you can play while you're young. Having an understanding of how to play without the ball, being coached really hard, not being allowed to just do any and everything you want to do, which kids call getting in their bag today. Because when you get to the NBA, you have to start in a role. And a lot of guys that's talented and don't make it or don't last, it's not because they can't play in the NBA. And you wonder, and these guys don't understand. They be like, oh man, but I averaged 50 every time I got in, I scored. Yeah, but you're not starring in a role. So you can cook, right? You can cook, but you can't collaborate, right? So you can cook, but you can't digest information. You can cook, but you're not willing to not be the focal point. And you don't understand when you take a step back from the league and look at, he's never had to be in that situation until he was at the end of his career. But he had so much confidence in himself, and his legacy was already cemented already. So when he came to that point in his career, he's now loving the game. And he went through a thing where me and him talked where he just wanted to be back in the league and do it his way. You talking about a guy who made all the money, all the all-star, did game winners, all that, but his love for the game brought him to that space at that time. These guys, that's at the end of the road. He'd already had the pot of gold, the rainbow, everything. These guys aren't even on the road, and they're not getting opportunity because they don't understand how to start in a role. And it's just one thing that's sad, because all these high-ranked guys, they don't really last. But it's because of that more than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's to your point. It starts with the development. Like, you're not being taught the game the right way no more at a young age. So when you go to these combines and these colleges and try to make the pros, as you start getting older and bigger and stronger, everybody else is doing the same thing, right? Somebody you may have seen at 6'1" this year may come back 6'4" next year, and 6'7" 2 years after that. So when you get to that level, to your point as a role player, and I can attest to this because I had to, at the end, to your point, be at peace with that. I had to be away from the game in order for me to appreciate, okay, you know what? I'm gonna be at peace. I'm gonna do it my way. I wanna have fun. I wanna enjoy the game, but I'm gonna accept my role. And I had to take all.
Now, Melo is a product of his era. When he came into the league, it was more kind of star-driven, ISO, you got to get your points. But the league today is definitely more talented from the first person to the 15th man on the bench. And in this parity era, these younger players are going to have to come in more with the mindset that Rich Paul was talking about, where they have to come in and accept a role, kind of star in that role. And who knows, from night to night, they may end up in a situation where they're starring in that 1A role where they have to score. But the league today is very different than the I'ma do me era, where a bunch of guys are trying to jack up shots, trying to imitate Michael Jordan after he retired, for the most part shooting about 40% from the field. And some of their teammates consisted of guys who were just strong and were rebounders, not necessarily scorers. They were kind of setup men and enforcers. Today's league is pace and space. A lot of guys can beat players off the dribble. It's a complete different ball game. And one player I could point out that has been struggling with this ever since he came into the league is Cam Reddish.
Of the ego hat and the pride hat of just like, you know what? I'm gonna be cool with averaging 13 because that's my role, right? I can't look at it like, oh, I'm averaging 13, I'm averaging 15, and comparing that to where I was at in New York, averaging 28, 29, right? Because of the fact that I had to accept my role. So if I'm doing that in my role, I feel like I'm having a very successful year. And that's something that mentally that I had to really not play the game, but really accept that and understand like, damn, in order for me to really have fun with this game, I gotta accept this role for me, right? And I don't think kids have an opportunity from a young age to understand what playing a role is, because you're taught roll the ball out and go play. You got the best handles, you're the best player at that age.
And it's also the AAU culture. It's, oh, he's the nicest player, we're going to fly him out to play for this team. Then the very next week, we're going to fly him out to a different part of the country to play for another team where there's a different shot clock. The basket is a different height. It's all sorts of different rules and regulations. It's a very sticky situation in the AAU circuit. And also for a lot of these kids, I got to shoot them bail. The mentality that it took for them to be a top pick, a top guy. It's hard to tell them to tamper that down once they get into the league and fit into a team concept. That transition, it may take some time. But meanwhile, their European and international counterparts are taught basketball like that off rip. And every week from a youth level, they actually move up according to their talent, not based off of their age. And they play with the same rules, the same height with the hoops, and the same regulations all through. So it's a complete different system, and it makes sense why a lot of the international players are coming along and they're dominating the game.
Until you meet somebody that's the best player at that age and realize you ain't developed the right way. And that's the problem, that when they get to the pros, and even college, even some colleges, when they get to that level, they lost.
Yeah.
They struggle the first year. Then they confidence is low. Then they gotta get in the transfer portal. Because you're not putting the work in.
Yeah.
You ain't understanding.
One thing you just said, Melo, people understand how you embrace it at the end of your career is really 95% of our league's actual careers.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
I don't think the kids know that. Rich Paul, I'm pretty sure you know that. The kids do not know that. They assume that they're going to be in the role where they're going to be scoring 20 points per game the same way they were in that role during their high school years and AAU years. They were considered the best player. And that's the problem with the AAU circuit. That is a major problem. They find out someone is super nice, they'll fly them out. They never practice or play with their team before, but because their talent is super high, they just instantly give them the ball and just kind of ISO and let them do them. And none of that translates even in a college level, let alone the NBA.
You know, it's tough, but that's the truth.
Have you ever had to have that conversation with an athlete that you represent, where it's just like, hey, bro, listen, you might have been the guy at whatever academy, but right here, you just need to get.
I've had it at the beginning. I've also had it at the end. And the other issue is a lot of these guys are surrounded by a lot of people that really don't have the right information. And good, right, or indifferent, whatever it is, still you have to be able to, if you're around these guys, you have to be able to really check yourself and realize that I can't just say certain things because they're searching. They're searching for the words that they want to hear. They're not really searching for the right words. They're searching for, no different than a little kid going to you and you say, Dad, can I get, no. Mom, can I, no. When they get to grandma, she say, yeah. Y'all both said no, and then she said, yeah, that's who I'm going with. It's the same thing in our industry a lot of times. And I don't want to be a person that people say, oh, well, man, you don't want me to listen to my dudes or my families. No, it's not that. It's just that what I'm telling you is what I know is coming right from the horse's mouth, right to you, because we're all in this together trying to help you better position yourself.
But there's a middleman between Rich Paul relaying that information, and the middleman is the whole business of the AAU circuit. We see Overtime Elite, how they came up. Nike is a middleman in between that. All the sponsors. Oh, this is a Nike kid. He can't go play against another top player that's an Adidas kid. There's a lot of middlemen and a lot of business entity, multi-million-dollar, if not $1 billion, with this NIL money coming in. There's just a bunch of industries in the middle. You got grown men following kids around, recording them, putting together their highlight tapes. They're getting paid. They're monetizing it through social media platforms. Kids are going viral. This is a whole entity. This is a whole industry. We're talking about full-grown adults just following kids around. That's their cameraman. These kids have cameramen. Even when they score, they're looking for the cameras to celebrate and point at. This is a whole different machine, a whole different monster that is in between the leagues and the youth. So Rich Paul talking about he has to watch his tone of how he speaks to these players. He's really talking about the machine behind these players that are kind of empowering them and giving them sometimes a false sense of reality.
They're seeing it from a perspective of most people that have an athlete that they're connected to, they only live in that athlete's world, and that's the only world they have to care about. And so you only seeing it out of one lens. if this person don't get in the game, if this person don't get a lot of shots, etc. You're only seeing it out of that one lens. Why they not getting this right now? Well, me, I'm looking at it holistically, and I can only give it to you from a real place of education at the highest level, not because it's something that you want to hear or not because I'm trying to bamboozle you. I'm really trying to help. And that's a tough balancing act as for somebody in my position, right? So, but that's the role I have to play, and it's okay.
You gotta do it, man. Sometimes you gotta be the bad guy.
Gotta be it.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta do the hard
you gotta be
things.
it, yeah.
And that road will get tougher with all that NIL money getting in. A lot of NBA players today coming into the league, that is not their first six-figure checks that they're cashing in weekly. So these are brand new times for the NBA, but again, with this media landscape, we get the insight directly from the source, so we can break it down and put it into proper context. Now, as the NBA navigates through this new media landscape, where there's more competition for viewers, you got a younger generation more preoccupied with the plethora of options that they have to watch from night in, night out, from social media to the video game world to the streaming world with entertainers such as Kai Cenat. The competition for younger viewers is at an all-time high. And previously, I discussed Jaylen Brown's sit-down with Stephen A. Smith, where they talked about him playing the corporate game and him being viewed as a disruptor. Because keep in mind, Jaylen Brown did support Kyrie Irving in his fight against Nike, and also he supported Ice Cube by showing up and participating in his Big 3 tournament. And that right there is one of the reasons why he's called a disruptor. Because as the NBA competes in this new media landscape for viewers, they do not want more competition coming in. And Ice Cube spoke about the NBA almost becoming adversarial and them showing up into this basketball landscape. But before we hear from Cube, we're going to reference back to Jaylen Brown's sit down with Stephen A. Smith, where they spoke about him being called a disruptor. You guys check it out.
The way, the shoe companies go about issuing deals and illustrating people's value in terms of IP, in terms of creative control, in terms of like how involved you are in the process, I think it needs to change. I listen to the voices of our older generation. I know players that I can name, superstars, that would tell you right now, man, they frustrated as hell. They stuff can't come out when they want it to come out. They have no input or control. They was forced to renegotiate certain percentages that they think they should have more value. And they wish it was other options. So, people like to use the word disruptor for me, and I really don't like it.
You don't like the word disruptive for yourself?
It comes with the territory.
Okay.
But no, because everything that I've tried to be a part of, everything that I am a part of, my thought process has always been solution-based. Listening, being a rep, representing our 450, listening to what players are saying behind closed doors.
But some people would say solutions can be disruptive from time to time, depending on who you're dealing with.
Yes, no, you're correct. I just don't like to be called just like singularly a disruptor. I know it comes with it, but my thought process has always been solution-based, trying to create a solution for what I feel like in society, from an athlete perspective, is viewed as a problem. And that doesn't just stop with the shoe industry. The agency model, we can go more in detail. Actually, I could talk to you all day about this stuff. We have a lot of meetings with the union, which I'm happy to be involved with. I've been since I was 21 years old. So I've been 7 years now.
So right there, Jaylen Brown gives us insight to how he's perceived around the league. And now we're going to see one of the reasons why, because the league that he participated and showed support for, Ice Cube's Big 3, was something that the NBA and Adam Silver was adversarial towards. And Ice Cube is going to give us great insight on that. And this is one of the reasons why he's viewed as a disruptor. But at the same time, the NBA markets themselves as supporting small black business. This is where this area kind of gets tricky, because it's not necessarily a race thing, but they got to understand how the optics look. These optics, sometimes they look funny in the light. So there's a lot of backdooring and self-sabotage that's done, not necessarily too overtly, more indirect and behind the scenes, as Ice Cube is going to allude here. But at the end of the day, this is really about business. The NBA does not want more competition to take away eyeballs and perhaps advertisement dollars, entering to an already crowded up media landscape. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Who the fuck thinks to bring the players that are over the hill, if you will, in the NBA and put them and let them compete and give them an opportunity to be, like, compete again? I'm like,
well, you know what, I looked at 3-on-3. I played a lot of 3-on-3 growing up. We had some of the biggest battles in my backyard.
Okay.
On my street, in Van Wyck. And I always loved the game. I always loved the mano-a-mano of it. You know, you're involved with more of the action if you play 3-on-3. Everybody done played 5-on-5.
You can hide.
And done ran 4 or 5 down the court and ain't touched the ball. You like, hey, man. Hey, homie.
I don't want the ball. I just stay close to my guy and say, please don't pass me the ball.
I'm just running.
Yeah.
So everybody like 3-on-3 because, you know, you can't hide. And I was like, man, why isn't this elevated to the professional level? I'm seeing Nike doing the weekend warrior, you know, bring your 3-on-3 team down and we playing in the parking lot of the stadium, and, you know, Mountain Dew and all these, like, amateur tournaments. And I'm like, where's the pro version of the game? And I'm like, oh, it's a void in the industry.
You see all the connection between the sponsors? He's looking at the sponsors. Mountain Dew, Nike, they all have NBA affiliations. The league doesn't necessarily have to speak to Ice Cube to sabotage him. They could just tell the sponsors, hey, don't mess with him.
It's a void here. And it's in that window where, you know, when the finals is over, everybody got a basketball hang.
That summer is so brutal. It's hell for sports fans.
Yeah, you know, when the finals is over before the NFL kickoff.
All we got is baseball.
Man, so I used to hibernate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like a bear and shit. Wake me up in September.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn, it's a void in the industry. We can put an actual sport 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That means something and give people something to do in them dog days of summer. So, you know, all those elements. Now, we was just shooting the shit. When I say we, it's my partner, Jeff Quanitz. We've been working together for 27 years. So we just shooting the shit for a whole year. What if we did this? How can we do this better than the NBA?
Yeah.
How can we treat our athletes better than all the sports leagues? And then, you know, when a good idea starts to build on itself, we was looking and we was like, man, this would be an amazing league. Who gonna put this together?
Who's the first?
Yeah,
so who's the
who
first?
would do this?
I would say, who do you call? I want to do a basketball league. Like, who do you call? Like Michael Jordan? I'm like, I don't know who to call.
Well, what we start doing is we said, okay, to start a league like this, we got to start with credibility. So let's go get some of those Hall of Famers who we know built the game but didn't get paid off the game. So we start talking to George Gervin, Iceman, and Clyde Drexler, and Dr. J. And
all those guys still have NBA affiliations. Best believe the league is not happy about that, because at the same time with Ice Cube associating with those guys and those guys associating with his league, it's almost as if the NBA is putting their stamp on Ice Cube's league and verifying it to the audience. Like, hey, this is official. So they understand how the optics look like. But it's a nice little chess move by Ice Cube right here.
And these dudes was like, this is a great idea. And they wanted to be a part of it. So when you can get the endorsements of those dudes on a basketball idea, you must got something. And it was just formatted and calibrated right to where it was fun to play, fun to watch. You getting, you know, multiple games at an event, so you get to see the whole league. Where else can you go and see the whole league?
That's real.
And so it was just good idea after good idea. And now, you know, it was about finding the people. You know, it's like a SEAL team. We don't have a platoon of people. We just got a small unit that know how to go
Get busy.
and get it done and get out. You know, so
y'all hear that?
we don't take no for an answer. You know what I'm saying? We rough enough for what was to come. And you know, it's rough trying to introduce a new sport. You know, in the middle of all these, you know, 800-pound gorillas like the NBA and the NFL, and you know, nobody wants a new sport to come in because you start to take advertising dollars.
And they especially want to view this color owning it, because you could bring the information back to more people. You'll look like you'll help more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's more about advertising dollars.
And also more eyeballs. Even though Ice Cube's league is during the summertime, the NBA is starting to take a page out of the NFL's playbook. They're extending the draft to 2 days. The free agency period has become almost a fiasco in itself. It's its own ecosystem now. And they want to occupy the news cycle throughout the whole year. That's the game plan. So they're trying to figure out new ways of doing it. Summer League now has become a whole event in itself, going out there in Vegas. So the NBA understands that, hey, the NFL is starting to steal some of our market share with Christmas games and also having their draft extend longer. So we have to kind of occupy the same space. So that summertime window, which used to be free, is actually getting more and more crowded every single year. So Ice Cube's assumption that the summertime is still wide open, it's actually closing. And right now it's really only, I would say, the month of August when it comes to the NBA fully kind of being offline.
To view this color owning it, because you could bring the information back to more people. You'll look like you'll help more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's more about, yo, we need Pepsi to give us that money. We don't need them to be breaking off these other leagues.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to give us less. So everybody try to keep you out. So, you know, I tell my guy, it's the equivalent of trying to hold off a 800-pound gorilla while you build an ocean liner at the same time.
So did you, like, obviously I heard you speaking about your discrepancy with the NBA. Like, did you reach out to them and say, hey, would you guys like to be a part of it? And they just said no?
We met with them, and they were like, you know, the more basketball the merrier, man. You know, you got our blessings. Yeah, go for it. We was like, well, we want to give you guys a piece. We offered them 10% of the league for free.
Now that right there is real interesting. I'm wondering how Ice Cube really approached them, because them starting off a league with random players and making it 3-on-3, I don't think that would bother the NBA as much. But the fact that they're using former NBA players who pretty much, once people see them and their name, it's associated with the NBA. So if they see those same people with another product associated with basketball, people would automatically assume it's like a cosign from the NBA. It's almost like a valid stamp to the viewing audience. And if that's Ice Cube's approach, their business minds is telling them that 10% isn't shit. Our percentage is really almost 90 to 100%, because you're building that league off of their brand recognition.
Just don't fuck with us. I love it. Don't try to kill us.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, we giving you this. We know this is your thing. You know, basketball. You guys think you own it? Okay. We in y'all hood. We want to break y'all off. They was like, no, thank you, but no, thank you. Do your thing, Cube. So as we go to do our thing, we find out there's hate behind the scenes.
Very passive aggressive.
And that hate will come very subtly. And you see how the NBA treated Ice Cube, not overtly telling him, hey, they didn't necessarily think that was a good idea. They just kind of passive aggressively went on about their business. It's the same way with Jaylen Brown. They did not want an active all-star player participating in Cube's Big Three. It kind of gives that league a stamp of approval to the viewing audience that a current NBA all-star that's knee deep in the playoffs every single season is participating in Cube's league. This is why they view Jaylen Brown as a disruptor. But at the same time, the situation is delicate. Jaylen Brown is supporting, in his mind, a small black business venture. And the league has to make sure the optics does not look like they're trying to crush a small black business, which in reality, that's not the case. They're just trying to eliminate any type of competition.
Aggressive.
Very passive.
Oh my God, we love what you're doing. Go do it. And then as soon as you walk in the room, they say, kill him.
Kill that shit.
Kill that shit.
So
that's what makes us gangster, by the way. That's what makes us gangster, by the way. What makes us gangster, we're going to tell you to your motherfucking face no.
Yeah, we'll tell you.
We're not going to be passive
I would have
aggressive.
respected Adam Silver if he'd have told me, come on, Cube. Do you see us starting a rap group? Like, come on, man.
Exactly.
Just do your music.
Yeah,
man.
like
I'll invite you to the games. You can, man. Don't fuck with us, man. You know, don't do this. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't like other leagues coming in.
But
I'm gonna still have to shoot Adam Silver some bail here because I don't know how Cube fully explained it to him. Because those meetings would have went a lot different had Cube said, "Hey, we're using some of your legendary NBA players that built their name off your league, and we're going to kind of use it as a valid stamp in the viewers' eyes of the credibility of our league." That's where the NBA probably had a lot of issues with, but we don't know how Ice Cube explained it to them. Again, very interesting portion early on in this interview where Cube had noted that the previous players of the past have not been compensated as well as the players of today. So he clearly spotted an opportunity to use their names and give them an ownership stake in a different type of entity. But hey, it is what it is. Jaylen Brown, you see why he's called a disruptor. I could imagine how furious the NBA was with an all-star, current all-star showing up to Ice Cube's Big Three when Cube himself had let it be known that they try to sabotage him behind the scenes. And the optics for the NBA do not look good if they were to chastise and punish Jaylen Brown for making that appearance. But best believe they were not happy about that. And people like Stephen A. Smith, when you hear them say executives behind the scenes is saying that he's not marketable, that's really where all that sentiment comes from. But hey, it is what it is. You guys definitely hit up the mailbag in the description below. Leave me with any questions you have. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.